Hi, it's Jeffrey Thomas here from Airline News, and I'm joined today by Richard Godfrey from Germany, and with Blaine Gibson from somewhere in the world. Welcome to you both. We're here to discuss the possible search for MH370 being on hold. But before we get into that discussion, breaking news that in the last hour, the search ship Armada 7806 has left Singapore and appears to be bound for Mauritius. This was actually the last of the Armada ships of Ocean Infinities that could do the search. We're hopeful that it will not go to Mauritius, but go to the search area. But at the moment, it's bound for Mauritius. So, gentlemen, we're here to discuss this search that should be underway by now. A contract should have been signed by now. To you, Blaine, what do you believe is the hold-up with Malaysia signing up with Ocean Infinity?
Well, the Ocean Infinity full proposal was presented in May. So that is plenty of time for the contract to have been signed, and it really should have been signed, and the search should have started in November. So what's different between now and 2018 when they had a search? Well, on the positive side, we have both old and new credible evidence that show about where the plane is. And there is more reason to have a search now than there was 7 years ago. We have the University of Western Australia drift analysis. A lot of that area has not yet been searched. That is what guided me in my search for floating debris. It is the UWA analysis that accurately predicted where and when debris would wash ashore. We also have the whisper tracking technology developed by Richard and Hannes Coetzee. We have that. We have new debris finds, and we have the results of past searches. We have a better idea of where the plane is and a better idea of where it is not.
And to
So
you,
then,
Richard, if I can interrupt, sorry, Blaine. Um, it's your technology, the Whisper technology, that's really driving this new search. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, the Whisper technology was discussed at length in that meeting that Blaine referred to in the 2nd of May in Kuala Lumpur last year. There's a lot of new technology. Also, the underwater search technology from Ocean Infinity is much improved in the last 7 years. And all of the analyses that Blaine referred to have defined search areas, new search areas, which are much more accurate. So I have a very positive view that Ocean Infinity will find MH370 if they were to go and search.
So, gentlemen, and I'll start with you, Blaine, what are the Malaysians afraid of? Are they afraid that we really are going to find it this time and the ramifications of that?
well, I would say that while there are many reasons to have a search, on the negative side, it's been 7 years since there has been a search, and there's been a major disinformation campaign going on for 7 years, which give the public the impression that the plane could be anywhere. And it's simply not accurate. It's disinformation, but it's very sad. And then there's also a certain lethargy that takes place when for 7 years there haven't been a search. But for what could the people who do not want the plane found possibly be afraid of, or what they're afraid of if it is found? Well, for one thing, 239 people were lost. So there could be huge compensation claims there when the exact cause and the proof of what happened is known. And the second is simply embarrassment, loss of face, whether it was an accident due to a malfunction or whether it was a pilot suicide, as some say, whether it was a third party hijacking. or whether there was any illegal or improperly packed cargo on board. That could all be embarrassing and uncomfortable and result in liability. So that's what I think some people who do not want the plane found, don't want the search, are trying to avoid, are afraid of.
And Richard, your thoughts on this? What does Malaysia
Yeah,
have to fear?
I agree with Blaine. Let me give you an example. The Malaysian military said right from the start they had data from their radar systems. They have never released that data. They did show a radar trace to the families back in 2014 at a presentation they made in Beijing at the Lido Hotel. But if we find the plane and recover the flight date recorder, then we'll know exactly where the plane went. And when that's revealed, it might also, as Blaine say, embarrass the authorities because it shows actually it flew a different path. So a lot will be revealed if we find the wreckage.
Now, when we last
Yes.
spoke, Richard, you mentioned an attempted coup to take over the investigation by a number of Malaysian Air Force officers. What can you tell us what happened back in 2018, Richard?
Yeah, the that's very disturbing news when Ocean Infinity's vessel, the Seabed Constructor, docked in Fremantle, Australia, back on in February 2018. Uh, there were an attempted coup by some officers of the Air Force, the Malaysian Air Force, to board the ship in Fremantle. And bear in mind, there were already civilian observers from Malaysia on board. That would immediately produce a conflict of interest between the civilian observers and the Malaysian personnel. Fortunately, Ocean Infinity uh, blocked the military personnel from joining the ship, but it's quite disturbing.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Blaine, you were there at the time, were you not?
Yes, I was in Fremantle when this happened. I got wind of it from a source, a very reliable source in Malaysia, that this plan was taking place. I learned that they had, in fact, these Air Force officers and the general from the Army had taken all of the 370 floating debris. They had seized it from the Ministry of Transportation and taken it to their own storage facility. And they were trying to remove the Annex 13 investigators from the ship and put their own people on board who were untrained, unprofessional, and the justification that they gave was that they wanted them on the ship to secure the black boxes for national security reasons. Well, so when I heard that, I leaked it to the press, and there was some very good investigative reporting, and some of those officers who were attempting to stage this coup were interviewed. And what happened is that when that hit the press, Dato Azarudin, the civilian chief of civil aviation, put down his foot and said, no, this is a Annex 13 professional investigation, Ministry of Transportation. It's civilian. We have our own people on there observing, our own people on there trained, and we're not letting these Air Force guys take over. So he put his foot down and he traveled to Fremantle, and I met him there, and he toured the ship, and he made sure that the regular Annex 13 team and the observers, the two observers from the Navy who'd been on the ship earlier, stayed on the ship and joined the ship with their regular rotations.
So, just for those viewers watching this, for their information, Blaine, leading on from what you've just said, who is responsible in the Malaysian government for the search for MH370?
Well, back then it was the Ministry of Transportation and Department of Civil Aviation, but there was especially set up under ICAO the Annex 13 team, which
Yep.
consisted of 20 civilian Malaysian professionals, top engineers. I've met many of them. They're very good, very dedicated to finding the plane, and accredited experts from 7 countries. And they issued a final report in 2018 that included 33 pieces of recovered 370 floating
Yep.
debris.
Yep.
And now Annex 13 is now, as the end of 2018, disbanded, and CAAM and AAIB, those aviation authorities, are in charge, and nothing at all has been done. No investigation of the recovered floating debris,
Yep.
no updates. That's it,
Sure.
zero.
Yep. Now, Richard, you got some thoughts on this?
Yeah, as Blaine mentioned, the Department of Civil Aviation was handling this, and in 2016, they changed the organization in Malaysia. The Department of Civil Aviation was no longer a civil aviation authority for Malaysia was formed. And very importantly, the Air Accident Investigation Bureau, the AAIB in Malaysia, was separated out from this organization, reporting directly to the Minister of Transport. And the other key fact about the AAIB in Malaysia, it used to be civilian personnel, former pilots mostly from Malaysia Airline Systems. But now it changed and became almost entirely, I think with one exception, military personnel from the Air Force in Malaysia. And there are some close to the investigation who are very disturbed by the military takeover of the AAIB in Malaysia.
Yeah, it seems as though the agenda has certainly moved. So Blaine, do you believe there's a power struggle going on between the civil and military organizations in Malaysia? It certainly would seem so.
Yes, I believe there is, and what Richard said is correct, that most of the civil aviation personnel now are military, almost all of them. There's a power struggle that's going on in Malaysia between the people who want 370 found, the ones who don't, and then the largest group, which just doesn't want to pay for it if it is found and just sort of wants to forget about the whole thing and watch it go away. And that has been evident for years. It's evident in the underwater search, but it is also evident, and I can say firsthand, in the evaluation and investigation of 370 floating debris.
So Richard, moving on, if I can, one wonders what the capability is of Malaysia to actually do a proper investigation to international standards. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, apart from the fact that they're not analyzing the debris that they
Yeah.
have, which is bad news, there are many close to the investigation who fear that Malaysia doesn't have a capability like the NTSB in America or the AAIB in the UK or BEA in France to analyze thoroughly the flight data recorder, the cockpit voice recorder, if they're found, and other wreckage. BEA in France did a massive analysis of the flaperon found in Réunion and still have that in their possession, for example. So the question really is even if wreckage is found, even if the black boxes are found, whether Malaysia would do a proper and full analysis of that evidence.
Well, that's a very, very big question mark, because sadly, I've been covering aviation disasters for too long. So often the actual cause of the tragedy is overlooked, is whitewashed, is hidden. And I would fear that this could possibly be the case with this one, because whether you're talking about tussles between the civilians and the military, whether you're talking about complete apathy when it comes to picking up and analysing debris that various folks have found, it doesn't paint a very encouraging picture. And when we consider, as Blaine mentioned, the first proposal from Ocean Infinity, or the most recent proposal, was in May last year. We're 10 months later and we still haven't got a contract signed. It doesn't really resonate well for another search and then a proper investigation, because in fact, in the last investigation, the conclusion was they exonerated both pilots. Now, how they can possibly do that without finding the aircraft is inexplicable. But look, we're going to thank you for joining me today, Blaine and Richard. We're going to monitor the progress on 7806, Armada 7806 out of Singapore, bound for possibly Mauritius or somewhere else. And hopefully we can discuss this further in a few days' time. So I thank you very much for your participation today.
You're very welcome.
You're welcome, Jeffrey, and thank you, and search on.